These are the biggest changes to Enlisted I could have possibly imagined. Don't even try and say it's not important, because these changes literally alter how the whole game works. Following on from the quick overview of every new update to Enlisted, which you should watch in this video, we are now diving into detail with two of the most important things: the progression and matchmaking updates coming this year. The devlog and the way it's structured is actually a bit confusing, and I initially had so many questions that were later answered in later parts of the devlog, and even after reading it I still have around 100 more questions that I try to ask the official Enlisted helpers in our Discord, which you can do as well, by the way, so join our community to participate in the debate. And I actually scrapped the first take I made of this video because I went on massive tangents as a result of speculation on specific questions. Please remember though that all the images and all the information on here is confirmed to be a work in progress and a proof of concept rather than 100% sorted. So your feedback on this video in the comments the developers will be reading guaranteed. So post anything you want to say to the devs down below, whilst they're still testing the waters to see what people like myself, people like other content creators, and people like you guys watching this video right now think of all this stuff. But now diving into it, if you look at the cover image for the dev blog, just before you even look at what's in it, it basically just looks like War Thunder version 2, and honestly, if this is the new UI they were talking about in the roadmap, I'm not a huge fan. It's not awful, but I prefer the current one. The current one feels more enlisted-y. Not that that's a verb, but we should probably begin by talking about a section that's actually halfway down, because it makes the most sense to make it a structured video, and that's the historical accuracy part of it. In some cases, there may be more deviations from historical accuracy than what we currently have in the game. That's what they say in this dev blog, and I honestly do agree with it. I see too many people on the forums and Reddit care a little too much about historical accuracy, and they should know by now that it's basically impossible for the game of Enlisted to be 100% historically accurate. It just can't happen. It will never happen, but they have to deviate from it. I mean, they had to add so many experimental prototypes to fill out the campaign trees anyway, and no matter what they do, people will complain. Yes, I do agree with the direction the game is taking, as this ensures it has the most potential for future growth and attracting new players, not just catering to the history nerds like myself. Because if they did that, the game would never grow. And the game is moving into a much more arcadey, fun, fast-paced system, not like the slow pace of Hell Let Loose, which actually bores me, if I'm being honest with you. So I personally am very glad this is the direction they're taking. And don't get me wrong, historical accuracy will still be important. They're still going to aim to try and include a lot of the same weaponry and model everything correctly. It's just that it may not be used in the exact way that all these history nerds want them to be used. There's also a section right at the end about keeping your progress. So in essence, as I said in the previous video, there will be no wipe of your progress, which is really easy to imagine once you see the research tree, which I'll show you in a second. But just thought I'd let you all know so you don't have to worry about everything that you've done being deleted. But now we come to a very interesting change, and that's the research tree. They're moving away from linear progression to a research tree format. In essence, you'll be able to choose which weapon or vehicle you want to unlock first and skip stuff which you just don't want. Now this sounds like it makes a lot of sense. You can see at the top here all the rifles in a tree, which is kind of similar to what the campaign tree looks like now, but you can actually pick to skip out everything in between those, so you can just level up the weapons should you want to and unlock better ones. And then you could go down the tree and see that they're the same for the assault weapons, the machine guns, the tanks, the planes, whatever. What I really do hope though is that this ensures variety, and I really hope it does. Variety in the sense of there won't be 100 people running around in game with PPD 3438s just because it's the best early thing they can get and they can't really be bothered to get anything else. Time will tell, I guess. There are also all the heavy weapons have been shoved into one tree at the bottom, it looks like. So the anti-tank rifles, the flamethrowers, the mortars, they're literally all in the same tree, which is a little confusing depending on how they're going to do squads, as I was literally about to mention. Because the more important questions I have about this precise image is actually not about the tree, but it's about the squads and how they work now as a whole. If you look at the far left, you can actually see that this 9-man random squad has 3 snipers already in it, with a possible 4th allowed in it, which is more than you could currently get in any sniper squad in the entire game, alongside an assaulter, 2 machine gunners, and a possible 2 radio men, which is not something you could ever do before. It looks to me that the whole mechanism of how squads work in this game will be completely changed. For example, there's 116th Panzer Engineer Reconnaissance Battalion, 28th Infantry Division. Is this like one of the only squads you can use in the entire game? Because if you can add whatever troop class you want to in this squad, what's the point in having other squads? You can just have one squad and just keep using this thing over and over. There are so many questions, as I said, still to be answered about this thing, and not even the helpers could really give me an accurate explanation of what this means. And it does say in the corner of the image, in fairness, that it is indeed a work in progress. One of the most concerning things about this, though, is the lost grind. This concerns me a lot, because I don't think anybody it's considering the aspect of, well, what comes after you complete the things you actually want. Like, say I only cared about the assault weapons. Okay, I can just speedrun that. Now what? What do I want to do? Nothing. I've got everything I want to do. I've got everything I want to use. What do you do after that? There seems like a lack of foresight into what players are able to do after this, and I'm not sure regular events would be enough for this. Time will tell, I guess. As with everything. Now on to the next few sections, which I'm gonna all merge into one, such as the campaigns, battles, and matchmaking, completely new systems that they're developing here. This is actually what concerns me the most out of everything here. I am not a fan of much of what is written here, at least in my opinion, and the way it's interpreted by myself, but also the way that the helpers explain it on our Discord. The first important thing is that you now play as nations, not as campaigns and factions, which is an absolutely monumental shift in the direction of the game. Initially, this doesn't sound bad at all, and quite interesting in fact. But once you realise that all locations, time periods, and equipment are going to be mixed together in an algorithm to spit out some random combination for a battle once you click play, that's when it gets a bit concerning. It's been confirmed that the Italians are a separate nation entirely alongside the Soviets, Germans, Americans, and Japanese, but not the British in Tunisia. At least it's not confirmed yet. Therefore, there's currently 5 nations you'll be able to grind with, reducing the size of the grind hugely, down from 12 to 5, and it excludes all the levels you don't even want. But maybe this also means that minor factions in a campaign, like the Australians in the Pacific, or Canadians in Normandy, or even British in Tunisia, just aren't possible now. And I don't like that fact. If you saw my video on what campaigns I'd like to see in 2023, then you'd realise that minor factions are a very important part as to what would make a campaign actually unique and interesting to play with. And then there's even more questions, like can the Germans play in Tunisia now, or is it just the Italians? And linking with the research tree, does this mean you can only get a few squads per nation, which therefore means you'll be using the same soldiers over and over again in whatever map you get randomly assigned, with the exact same equipment unless you choose to change it? That doesn't really strike me as interesting or unique. The mention of new campaigns being added in this same section actually just now means more maps, not really more campaigns as it used to mean, as it does right now, which does have its positive and negatives. On a more positive note though are the in-game events, where you can essentially try before you grind, which I think sounds like a great idea to help players gain a desire to unlock things. But in fact, if you think about it, they may get actually bored of using the stuff in this trial period and not bother to grind it after this period is over, because they've already used it for so long. Why would I need to bother grinding? Or they may also discover that the weapons they would actually be able to grind for in the future aren't actually that fun or interesting, so just won't bother to grind them to begin with. I'm a little bit concerned that it won't do as much positively for the game than it sounds like it should. And then this new matchmaking algorithm, which actually to me is the most concerning thing in this devblog. In short, this part says that matchmaking will be based on weaponry chosen and that you've unlocked, not the player's skill level, which really does make me skeptical about this. At least basing matchmaking on weaponry does tend to mean that kind of experienced players will be matched against each other, as they will have technically the best stuff, and new players will tend to be matched against each other, which is something. But then this raises a number of questions, and I could literally sit here and list about 100. For example, what about if I, an experienced player, wants to use bolt actions for fun and really low level assault weapons as I'm getting really bored of what I currently want, or maybe someone's redeemed it on my Twitch streams, which you can also do if you go and follow the link in the description to join us and you can talk about any of these updates with us. Then what? If I do so, does this mean I'm matched with a bunch of newcomers and I still just dunk on them because they don't know what they're doing? And the fact that they have new equipment and I have new equipment doesn't change that fact. And if this matchmaking takes too long, it says the matchmaker will assemble a classic session without taking ratings into account at all. And by ratings, they mean battle ratings, which is based on the equipment of your soldiers. So whatever you assume the definition of too long is, it means that the matchmaking system will just use what it currently is right now if the game takes too long to find. So essentially nothing changes. But then a number of questions rise from this as well. Does this mean you can get late game Normandy Allies campaign American equipment versus Japanese Arasakas instead of early war American equipment if the matchmaking takes too long to form a game? That really doesn't seem fair. Or alternatively, if you're a high level US player, well, you just never face Japan, and you have to use low-level stuff in order to actually ever face Japan, in order to make any games balanced whatsoever. It says that enlisted newcomers will be able to get used to the game in a much more comfortable condition, and honestly, I don't think that sentence makes any sense considering what they've said prior. I could be wrong, and I could be misinterpreting everything here, and the helpers have tried their best to answer our questions, and a lot of them they just can't answer yet. So time will tell, as I keep saying. It has been confirmed though that soldier perks and levels are not playing a part in this matchmaking session either. It's literally solely the equipment. I am really not a fan of what this means for the game, as equipment really isn't a definition of any kind of matchmaking in terms of skill. They might have a correlation, but it's not a direct correlation. There are a lot of not great players who are very experienced and play the game a lot, but then even they won't be matched up against people of their skill level. They would be matched against whoever has the same equipment as them, which makes so little sense in the grand scheme of things. I could sit here and debate this for hours about what this means for the game and what kind of matches you get as a whole, but I'll let you guys debate in the comments down below and I'll try to respond to them so that this video doesn't go on for too long. Another part is about custom matches. Now this is exciting, as a list of allowed weapons in particular can help with so many different ideas I have, and I'm sure all of you guys have as well. Hopefully they keep expanding the capabilities here, as I know for a fact that there's so many more things mod makers want. And that's not all. There'll be so much more stuff coming soon, so make sure you subscribe to this channel to make sure you stay in the know about every enlisted news article and important release that there is. I'll cover all the important stuff in depth on this channel and what it means for you and your grind in the game. As it says, let's make Enlisted the best it can be. If you have any more questions, head over to my Twitch streams. We're doing a live stream today covering all the latest updates, but I'll always be there to answer any questions you guys have in the comments of this video too. Enlisted is moving forwards. Let's help it by making sure you understand everything that's coming to the game in 2023 from this video.